Hi, and welcome to my poster presentation. My name is Ana Belen Conrado, and I'm going to talk you through my poster. My poster's title is Anthropology and Public Health. It's more than interviews and observations. So a little bit more about me before we dive deep into the nitty gritty of the poster. So I work at UT Southwestern Medical Center in the Department of Population and Data Sciences here in Dallas, Texas. So what I do is I'm a research associate in the qualitative research core in the department. And my role specifically is to be the qualitative expert on any project I am on. So, as you know, anthropologists work on projects, research. We research a myriad of things. And within research, there's all these levels that you have to, yeah, you do. You go from finding that problem, finding that question, to engaging with stakeholders, asking those difficult, tough questions and just deciding what your audience is that you're going to be interviewing, who you're going to be talking to, what you're trying to uncover, all those discoveries, to actually doing that. And then at the end, you grab all the data that you've collected, you've synthesized that, and you do data analysis, and then you present to your audience, whether that is back to the stakeholder, if it was an organization, or if it's the community, if you were doing an organizational thing, you're doing all these things. And so my role at UT Southwestern is to do that. All of these questions engage stakeholders, generate data collection instruments, begin data collection, data analysis, and papers and manuscripts for different research projects. So on any given day, I am not just at the beginning of a project, I am in different levels of the project. So I'm at different steps. So although I'm not giving you specifics to what projects I'm on just because, PHI and all that stuff, I can give you more specifics as to what a day looks like, for me. So if I'm, if I, and right now I am working on several projects. Right now, I'm at a certain stage for one project where I'm at the beginning. We're engaging the stakeholder. We're trying to find, we're talking to these stakeholders about what their big question is. They got this grant, it was funded. They have this really great question that they want to ask, this really great, they see a gap in healthcare and they really want to know, what can we do? How can we fill that gap? And so right now my day is, meetings, talking to these stakeholders, seeing, what, what they wrote in their grant, what aims do they have? What data collection instrument tool do we need to do? So for instance, right now, it's an interview. Is it a deductive or inductive interview? What does it look like? Is it going to be an interview done in person? Is it going to be one done face to face? Given COVID-19, what are we going to do? If are these participants that we're interviewing, are they cancer patients? Are they, young youth in foster care? Are they populations at great risk for contracting the coronavirus? We don't know. And so what we need to do is we need to meet the population at where they're at. So when we're generating a data collection instrument, we're trying to figure out what questions do we need to ask in which our participants will understand, and we answer the research question. So we not only have to look at the forest, we have to look at each individual tree all at the same time. So you're focusing in and out. So we want to address we want to address the research question, but we also want to be thoughtful and mindful of the population that we're speaking to. So when we create our interview guides, we're looking at it holistically. We're looking at how it might impact. Are the questions that we're asking, are they triggering questions? Are they getting at the research question? Are participants understanding? I do interviews in English and in Spanish, and when it comes to interviewing in Spanish, some things don't just directly translate. So you have to make sure that cognitively the understanding is there both in English and in Spanish, right? So then we begin the data collection process. We've determined what instrument we're going to use, whether that's an interview guide or we're going to use a red cap survey or whatever it is, and we implement that. So we recruit our participants and we call them, or we meet them face to face, or we do a video call and we talk to them and we do this interview, and we make sure that the interview is gets all the information that we need. We make sure that our participants feel comfortable enough to speak to us. right now, a lot of the interviews I'm doing are over the phone, and there's that disconnect, and it's really easy for folks to become distracted, right? And how can I, as an interviewer, engage my participant, the other person on the phone, and keep them motivated to speak to me? Because sometimes an incentive isn't enough. It is time out of their day. So we make sure that these interviews, for me specifically, I let them know upfront what we're talking about, how long it might take, and then we go through the interview process. And I, reiterate during the interview sometimes, like, we only have a few more questions. I really appreciate your time. And we ask these questions. Recently, I've been having conversations with participants who have cancer. And so we have to be mindful whenever we're doing data collection, if they had a certain treatment that might make them a little bit more foggy, they might be a little bit uncomfortable, and doing a 45-minute interview might not be the best time right now. So instead, we might reschedule that interview, or we're mindful of our participants. So let's say now we collected all of our data, we made sure we hit our aim, our numbers, we have all the participants we need, we've hit thematic saturation, and we might not be getting any new information. We start doing data analysis. And what data analysis looks like for me is going back and speaking to the stakeholders, the principal investigator, the project coordinator, and working with them and trying to figure out what themes are out there. So what we do is we transcribe all of our interviews, and the principal investigator and I, and other stakeholders, get together and we have this conversation. It's like, okay, this is what the interviews are saying. What themes are we coming up with? We create a coding dictionary, and from there we start to code things. And coding in this is in the sense is like you're doing qualitative coding. I'm meeting with other people that are qualitatively trained, that are sourced on this project with me, and we're coding our transcriptions, excuse me. So we're coding each and every interview, the field notes, any potential documents that are associated with this project. And this is a really long process, because sometimes you started a coding dictionary, and it might change. You change it, it's iterative. You change it, and you make sure it makes sense, because sometimes what you think you're coding, you might need to adjust a little bit. That doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes it does. It's just like, in the interview guide, bringing it back to data collection. Sometimes you're interviewing participants and you're asking this one question and you're not getting the response that you thought you were getting. So there might be, a gap. There might be a misunderstanding there. We need to make sure, we're both our participants understand what we're saying and what we're saying makes sense. And so we've done data analysis, we've coded, we have all of this data, what it means. We've looked at the research questions. So what do we do from there? Well, we write papers, we create manuscripts, we send things off to journals. We might, if it's a more local and a smaller pilot, we might send, if we worked with an organization, excuse me, we might send, quick facts of what we learned on this project. Some projects I've given feedback to the organization if they're interested in knowing, is our, center providing enough information, enough time in educating, our patients. Are we doing that? And we provide that feedback. We tell them, hey, this is what we found. We tell them both the negatives and the positives. If we partner with an organization for recruitment, to get, certain population members of the population recruited from there, we let them know, hey, your organization was mentioned several times and they had nothing but great things to say about you, or this is what they would really like to see. We give positive and negatives, but generally what we do is we get the data that we get, we synthesize it and present it to our stakeholders and let them know this is what we're seeing. And from there, papers, manuscripts, journals, news articles, all of that happens. So I'm looking at the COVID-19 study that happened at UT Southwestern, the prevalence study that we had. We went through this process, and what's coming up out of it now is that people, that big study that UT Southwestern did for COVID-19 prevalence that started last year. Now we're going to start seeing some papers on it, and seeing, what people's understanding of COVID-19 was and their own risk and risk behaviors, you know? So that's just a little bit about what projects might look like for me. And as you can see, it's a little bit of everywhere. So what's really important for me is to be organized and to be ready, because when I'm working, I have to make sure that all the projects I'm on, I can assess the needs not only for the stakeholders, but for the potential participants I'm going to be speaking to. I ask the tough questions because one of the things I say, of course, all of this stuff is interesting. Speaking to anyone about anything is incredibly interesting, but is it relevant? You know, and that's what I bring it back to. It's interesting, but is it relevant to the project that we're doing? So, although we have a million questions that we might have about this one specific topic, whether it's COVID-19 or cancer or cancer, specifically colon cancer or lung cancer, we want to make sure it's relevant to the big research question, you know, what got us the funding, right? But we also humanize participants. We don't just think about them as numbers, we think about them as people, we think about them holistically. I always tell my participants, and whenever I'm recruiting, I make sure that they're there, if that makes sense, like that they're present, that I can talk to them, especially now when a lot of the interviews that I do and a lot of the work that I'm doing is over the phone, is virtual. And that's really hard to get someone to connect. It's hard enough to get someone to, you know, connect when you're in person where there's distractions, but now even more so when, you know, you're doing virtually. And the last, you know, one of the things I also do is inform and implement. I inform, you know, the stakeholders of, you know, how this is done qualitatively. If I'm the expert, I want to make sure I know what I'm doing. And when I'm implementing, it's like, oh, this makes sense. You know, this makes sense for this population. We're going to meet them where they're at, not ask them to meet us where we're at, you know? We want to make sure that they feel comfortable. And the last thing I always like to do when I'm at any step of my project, whether I'm wrapping up or I'm right in the middle, when I'm moving on to the next phase, I want to reflect and improve on what I'm doing. Like, is my work, is this the best that I could have done? What can I improve on? What did I feel really good about? What do I think I can, you know, uh, fix later on or course correct? So all of this is, I guess, is to say that these are all skills that you need, that I need at my job. This is what anthropology has helped me understand. It's helped me understand that I need to be flexible, that I need to have a holistic approach. It lets me focus on the audience. It gives I working and getting the degree that I got at UNT helped me become comfortable with talking to people of different backgrounds. It's helped me be more reflexive and improve, or will reflect and try to improve. It's allowed me to just gain a different perspective. Anthropology, it's helped me do data collection and be better at that, data analysis and be better at that, and design and implementation of any, you know, data collection tool. I really love what I do, and I really loved what I learned while I was at UNT. My cohort was amazing, and we worked with each other to try to make each other better. But yeah, that's a little bit about what I've done and what I do at what the anthropology that I use at UT Southwestern in my role. Please let me know if you have any questions or if something didn't make sense. I'm more than happy to clarify some things or ask me anything. I'm, open book, and I'll be here to help you guys. But yeah, working at UT Southwestern has given me the opportunity to work on a lot of really cool projects. Some I can't be specific on because we're at a certain stage of it, but it is really interesting, the work that I get to do. And anthropology, some people go, where's the anthropology? And then it's like, oh, it's in everything that I do. It's in engaging with stakeholders. It's in, speaking to participants and doing the interviews. It's in creating REDCap surveys and making sure our participants understand, how to use REDCap or how to use a survey. It's in the data analysis that I do, what theories, what methods, what am I using? How am I understanding the data? How am I understanding, or how am I understanding the transcripts? How am I reflecting on that? And it's in how I write my papers, what journals, or what do I want to tell my audience? So that's a long-winded way of saying that my job is great, and I really appreciate learning what I learned at UNT, and anthropology is pretty cool. So it really matters. There's a lot of stuff that, we do not only in public health, but in other fields that really improve, excuse me, what we see and do in our day to day. Well, thank you very much. And please let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to be, I think, on a chat. So just let me know. I'm looking forward to answering any questions that you have or whatnot. Again, this is Ana Belen Conrado. I graduated from UNT's Applied Anthropology graduate program in 2017. And let me know if you have any questions. Thanks. Bye.